During this video, we will be demonstrating the clinical evaluation of language fundamentals assessment, the CELF 5. Katie is playing the role of the 7.5-year-old client, and me and Madeline are playing the role of the SLP administering the assessment. First, we will be demonstrating the sentence comprehension subtest. This test measures the comprehension of grammatical rules at the sentence level. Carefully to what I have to say. Point 2, the girl is not painting. Point 2, the girl is not ready for school. Point 2, the first 2 children are in line, but the third child is still playing. Point 2, the woman who's holding the baby dropped her purse. Point 2, the boy gathers the apples after they have fallen to the ground. Point 2, the girl is taking some flowers to her mother. Next, we will be looking at the linguistic concept subtest. It measures the ability to understand the linguistic concepts such as little, different, and many.
Point to the house that is closest to the sun. If there is a ball, point to the house. After you point to the flower, point to the sun. Point to the apple at the beginning of the row. Point to the row without a house.
The Clinical Evaluation of Language Fundamentals 5th edition is a standard test written by Elizabeth Wigg, Eleanor Samuel, and Wayne Secord. The CELF 5 was published in 2013 through NCS Pearson Incorporation. The cost of this test can range from $275 to $1,100 depending on the kit one chooses to administer with. The Clinical Evaluation of Language Fundamentals 5th edition intended audience ranges from the ages of 5 to 21. This test is a tool used for the identification, diagnosis, and follow-up evaluation of language and communication disorders in students. A strength to this test is that it is extremely flexible because there are multiple tests to be administered that assist a clinician in accurately diagnosing a language disorder. A limitation to this test is the possibility of a child having a disadvantage if they are not exposed to some forms of pop culture beforehand. Next is the many different subtests this assessment.
Of men, it seems there's so much we have lost as we look down the road where all the prodigals have walked. One by one, the enemy is whisper lies and let them off as slaves. But we know that you are God, yours is the victory. We know there is more to come that we may not yet see. So with the faith you've given us, we'll step into the valley unafraid. Yeah. As we call out to dry bones come alive.
With their being multiple subtests, each subtest is administered to the client and a raw score is obtained. The clinician will begin with administering the items that coincide with their age and establish a basal number, which is a certain amount of correct answers. Then the clinician will administer the test until they reach the ceiling number, which is a certain amount of wrong answers. The basal and the ceiling numbers are indicated on each of the subtest descriptions. After establishing the basal and ceiling numbers and obtaining the raw score, you are able to look up the other scores such as standard score, age equivalent, percentile, and confidence interval in the back of the manual. The reliability of a test refers to its accuracy and consistency of test scores. One form of reliability used in the CELF 5 is internal consistency. This measures how consistently the items in the domain tested measure one construct. Evidence of internal consistency to show the reliability of the CELF 5 is through a sample of 301 students that fell under the autism spectrum disorder, a language disorder, and a learning disability in the area of reading or writing. Their scores showed similarities to normative samples, which suggest that the CELF 5 is reliable for measuring language skills of students from the general population or students with clinical diagnosis. Another form of seeing the reliability of the CELF 5 is to examine its test-retest stability. This is the correlation between the test and retest scores and is a direct measure of test stability for repeated testing. The CELF 5 test-retest reliability was evaluated using a group of students from 3 age blends who were given the test and then retook it. After retesting, their scores showed overall stability. The last form of reliability evaluated was shown through inter-scorer agreement. Scoring rules were developed for the word structure, formulated sentences, word definitions, and structured writing tests, and scorers were trained in applying the rules before the standardization protocols were scored. These results showed that these tests can be scored reliably even by individuals with no experience with the CELF 5 scoring rules prior to scoring training. The validity of the CELF 5 comes from the technical manual. To establish validity, evidence is based on test content, response processes, internal structure, relationships with the prior vision of the test, and other tests that measure the same constructs, and on special group studies. The time needed to administer the CELF 5 is characterized by age groups. Administration of the core tests take 34 minutes for students ages 0 to 8. For students ages 9 to 21, this test takes an average of 42 minutes. The clinician should have knowledge of English language structure before attempting to give this test. When a clinician administers the CELF 5, it is important to not tell the student if their response is right or wrong, but it is acceptable to make general comments. For specific tests in the CELF 5, items may be repeated one time at the student's request, or if the student does not appear to be attentive during a presentation of an item on that test.